I think we'll go ahead and get started because he has a lot to talk about, and I hope we can cover it all. So we know a lot of people here, but for the ones that we don't know personally, I just want to do a short introduction. My name's Dr. Jennifer Southard, and back there's Dr. Adam Tice. He'll do a majority of the talking. I'll probably chime in if he misses something. No, just kidding. And basically, we are trained as naturopathic physicians. We've been in practice for going on 8 years now, and we have opened up clinics here locally, and we also have been in California where we opened up a clinic. We have patients all over the United States. We have traveled pretty much all around the globe looking for these ancient secrets that seem to be getting more and more hidden, particularly Central America and especially India, where these old yogic Siddha information, these old ancient secrets are really hidden in India because they have an unbroken lineage. They write everything down. That's basically why the information's there. So Siddha medicine is even more ancient than Ayurvedic. And then we brought together our training of naturopathic medicine to basically have our practice revolve around nature cure and vitalism and really bring back this medicine that's even suppressed even in the integrative medicine world. So we have also been employed by some of the top medical retreats in the world, really, particularly Dr. Gabriel Cousins at the Tree of Life, where Adam was physician working under him, detoxing, fasting people in an in-house retreat center. And so bringing back natural food, natural medicine, and then bringing it all together as we get older and older. So without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Adam Tice, and we'll get started.
Good day. How you guys doing? Okay. Are we all signed in there, Anthony? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's try to make some sense out of this. Hey guys. Okay, so I'm going to jump right on in. If you are here for the anti-aging, longevity, and spiritual nutrition download, you're in the right place. If you're looking for something else, I don't know what to tell you. It's really nice to... Yeah. It's really nice to see some of you guys. I haven't seen some of you guys in a long time, so it's very cool. So let's get in. I got a ton of territory to cover. Okay, disclaimer, this is just housekeeping. This, if before making any changes to your medical regimen, please consult with your physician, okay? That's that. Now, so I'm going to give a lot of information today. It's going to go pretty fast, okay? So just kind of hang on, and I'll try to carve some time out at the end to do a little bit of Q&A, or if something jumps out at you. I think it is a good idea if I see some of you guys have some notepads and stuff, just jot stuff down. Sometimes the answer will come like 2 minutes later after you think it. I'll say something and it will clear it up. And if it's something we don't cover, then we can address that. So I'm going to cover a lot of territory. This is basically going to be a really, it's kind of like a software download that I'm going to do right now. So we just hit the update button and now that little wheel is like spinning, okay? So, and really the software update is to not so much to just give you a bunch of stuff to do or a bunch of like random facts or anything like that. It's really to give you a proper cognition of what we mean when we're talking about aging and longevity, spiritual nutrition, these kinds of things. So context setting, okay? So today, by the end of today, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the top 5 things that I think are the longevity secrets. We're going to give it to you just like top 5. And then I'm also going to, at the end of this presentation, we're going to cover a lot of territory, give you the software download. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you an opportunity to take it to the next level, okay? if you came here just to get some goodies and get some some things like this, take a screenshot of this, because here it is. I can just lay it all out right here, okay? If you just want what do I take, Doc? What do I do? This is it. Just do this. That's it. So, you know what I'm saying? That right there is that's 20 years of research in there, you know? So just go ahead and get your snapshot, get it while it's good, okay? Going once, going twice. Gone! We'll go back and get it. We'll go back and get it. And just sometimes people are I'm one of those people. I go and I'm like, man, this dude's gonna give me some good stuff. I take notes, you know what I mean? I like to get the stuff down. So it's just I don't know, just go ahead and get it out of your system. That's what I sort of did with that slide. Okay, so I think now really what are we doing here? What really gets people here, So what if we could increase the energy, boost the clarity, supercharge the focus, get rid of aches and pains? If we could appear youthful, radiant, have the skin looking good and nice and stuff like this, balance the hormones, right? This is the kind of stuff that's out there that may have, you may be thinking this kind of stuff. It's this stuff that's commonly associated with aging and anti-aging. And this kind of, this is good because it's pain points. It's pain points. It's what gets you to come to a presentation or something like that, right? So we're going to address this stuff, and I'm also going to kind of shift and give some different cognition. But really, the point is, you want to look good, you want to feel good, you want to look great, you want to feel great, you don't pain-free. So we're definitely going to be able to do that. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Of course it makes sense. So I want to do something before we get going here. I want you just to take a second, and this is you can just sort of go inside a second here and think, sort of take an inventory. Where are you now? That sort of references that lifestyle. What got you in here? My hormones, my skin, my joint pains, or whatever, you know what I mean? Take the stock, see what's up with that, what gets you here. And then what I want you to do now, close your eyes for a second. And what I want you to do is, where you are now. The person that woke up this morning, that drove here, that came in the door, that's sitting in the chair now. Now, what I want you to do is visualize where you want to be. Where is it that you're going? Is it joint pain is gone? The knees stop, that knee pain clears up? Is it the hormones balance? Is it menopause type stuff? Is it your mood? What is that for you? Where are you now? And where do you want to be? What is the desired outcome? What does that look like for you? And start to visualize that. What does that look like? What do I look like? Do I look different? Do I look the same? And then I want you to visualize, take it one step further. You're visualizing, what's that feel like? What does that look like? Now, what does that feel like? What does that feel like to be that person? Okay, and just anchor that in and start to create the inner space for that desired outcome. And then you can slowly open the eyes. Okay? It's a big part of what we're doing. It's kind of like we got to clean house a little bit first. Got to make some space. Okay? So part of this is, it's much more than the when we're talking about aging, spiritual nutrition, anti-aging and longevity. It's really, if we just dig just one little bit deeper, what's the whole point of that? Why do you want to live a long time? Like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do such a thing? What would be the point of that? What's the quality of life? You know, you don't just want to be like 150 years old, but you're like, you know, bedridden and totally depressed, and it's like terrible, you know, it's just like enough, right? So it's the quality. What's the quality of that? And you came in, each one of us has a purpose. You have a reason for being here, and I'm not going to go, you know, ultra in depth with this, but I think each one of you kind of knows what is that. Why am I here? What am I doing here? What's my purpose, right? There is something that is in there, and we're all really, that's why you have a body, is to achieve that purpose. You know, and this is nothing new. Slight detour. Nothing I say here today is new. Nothing I say here I made up. Nothing I say here today is necessarily my own. It's all been said before. It's all been done before. Okay, so I'm just gonna connect the dots a little bit. So, you know, and this is something new. You know, clearly the spiritual literatures talk about this. They talk about achieving your peak potential, your peak divine potential. You know, across all, no matter what sort of you know, spiritual orientation you have. Any one that you choose, whichever sort of flavor you choose, they all kind of talk about that in some way, you know, so there's some flavor in that. All of the old school nature docs, the nature cure docs, the original, you know, barefoot doctors, right? Like back in the day, they talked about this kind of stuff. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that. But they talked about what's the point of living and life and health. Health is... it's a wealth. It's one of your greatest assets. It is your greatest asset. If you don't feel good, I mean, if you don't feel good, like you can have all the money in the world and it can suck because you don't feel good, right? It's like, okay, so can we really live long enough to make up? There's really a lot of case of mistaken identity walking around. We've identified our happiness and our wealth and things like that with things that don't really matter, okay? So really, as you go on, you start to wake up and you start thinking about this kind of stuff as you move through the different phases of your life. Am I fulfilling my potential? What I sort of imagined myself doing and being when I was a kid, you know, you have some idea of what that is, you know, and of course it changes and evolves, it matures as you chronologically age, and as you know, through multiple lifetimes, like big spectrum picture, that matures. And you start to become cognizant of this stuff, and you're wondering, am I fulfilling my dharma on the planet and really living my enlightenment? Am I living what my peak potential is? Am I achieving the maximum clarity while in physical form, feeling good and looking good? Okay. Again, just setting the context. What's the point of the longevity? So what does it mean for you? We're kind of, you know, these are some of the things that you might see sort of flashing on the thing, you know, hormones, the skin, the pain, the memory, energy, these kinds of things. We want these things to be optimized, no doubt. We want to have the proper, a little bit deeper context also. Okay, so let's just go cover some territory. So aging there's a lot of different definitions of ways this can be defined. You know, we could talk about it in one way as oxidation, right? It's just oxidative stress and you know, free radicals, and just, you know, walking around, you know, what does that actually mean? Well, it usually means that, you know, that's associated with joint pains, and, you know, many chronic diseases are associated with that. Inflammation, it can be all of these things. Of course, they're not separate. They all overlap, okay? But these are different sort of windows or ways that you could look about this. Oxidation and inflammation. Inflammation is big time. Okay, that's really the root source of a lot of the chronic disease that we have going on. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all these things. Environmental. A lot of environmental toxins. There's docs that specialize in just this. They're environmental medicine specialists. And there's some really neat testing that you can do, really nice, useful, beneficial testing that you can do to assess the environmental toxins. Just a decrease, as we go down here, decrease in energy and organization patterns of the subtle organizing energetic fields, basically your biofield, okay? You have a biofield around you, and as time goes on, because of the things in front of that biofield, it starts to sort of lose the protective energy that it has. It's kind of it's not the vital force, but it's a manifestation of the vital force. Okay, so as we age, sometimes that energy, it changes, the coherence decreases, and information communication breaks down. Then we can start to get, that's when things like cancer or things show up. Disease starts to show up. Okay, so there's these different ways. So I take a holistic approach, means I look at all of these different kind of things, and if a different person comes in the door, different people, different things, maybe one of those is sort of your main thing that you start at. Okay, so different ways. Aging versus growing. There's a difference between aging and growing. Aging is just going through life, kind of adding layers of heaviness as you go by. Each year it's getting harder and harder to get by, gotta chug this thing along, and it's like heavy, 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 heavy. So you go by. Or growing would be, and growing would be aging, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. But everybody's maybe seen somebody like, the 80-year-old woman that is like, you look at her and she's like a little kid, she's out playing in her garden, she's doing some yoga, bouncing around, you're like, wow, this lady's like 80, it's amazing. See, she is pulling off of those layers, becoming lighter and lighter and lighter as the time goes on, okay? So again, just a perspective kind of a thing. Context. That's nice. This is really what another thing that kind of gets us in here, everybody's scared to die. Everybody's scared to die, and that's really the main thing that everybody is really scared of leaving the body and not fulfilling that purpose, not having everything on the bucket list, not being really fulfilled and feeling like, man, I did it right this time. I got it right. I'm feeling good about what I created, right? So just put this a little bit in perspective, and this is going to start to get us into, where we're going. This is the top 3 leading causes of death, okay? And this is interesting context here. So number 1 and number 2, cancer and cardiovascular disease, okay? No surprises there. No surprises there at all. Number 3 is interesting. It's pharmaceutical drugs taken as they were prescribed and as they were intended to be taken. And people die. There was a report that was done, it's called the STAR report, and this report's old now. It came out in 2000. And this investigative medical researcher looked into how many people are dying from medicines when they take them the way their doctors tell them to take them. And it's over 100,000 people a year. This does not include, opiates and accidental overdoses and stuff like that. If I put that number in here, and if I put the number in here from medications prescribed for cardiovascular disease and stuff like this and polypharmacy, it would probably be the top cause of death, okay? So we gotta look, this makes us question how we're addressing what ails us. What are we doing to address what ails us, okay? You literally have and there's no ground to stand on. I put that in there, and then afterwards I thought it was kind of funny because if you're in the grave, you have no ground to stand on. But also, I meant it in the sense that they tell me, as a naturopathic doctor, that I have to use gold standard therapies and evidence-based medicine and science and all of this stuff, right? But when I actually look at the evidence and I look at the science, you guys are killing so many people. Why would I want to do that? Why would I do that to my patients? Okay? So, just a little context. So, agelessness, this has been talked about in yogic, Ayurvedic, Siddha technologies. These are ancient lifestyles that have been around. Some of these lineages these lineages and these timelines, these are definitely not new. And I mean, these are things that are literally 40, 50, 60,000 years old. Okay? So this is definitely not new, and these guys have been doing this a long time, using these techniques to rejuvenate the body. And there's accounts, again, across, in the Bible and Essene and the mystical Jewish tradition and Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, all globally, it's all there. So we want to create this agelessness, and how are we going to do that? What are we going to do? We're going to return to nature. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it. Now, this is very, very important, because what we're actually doing is you have to catch this here. This is a very important transition. We're crossing the bridge here right now. We're going from the dominant school of medicine and we're returning to nature. Okay? And we're no longer giving this for that. This for that, this for that, this interacts with this, you have to check your liver because it's essentially poisoning you, this kind of thing, right? We're changing our paradigm. We're moving into a paradigm where we nourish and we tonify the organs, the glands, the tissues, the cellular systems. We correct underlying imbalances. Our focus shifts from the external orientation to the internal orientation. See what I'm saying? So the perspective is moving, is shifting. We're returning to nature. This is the paradigm shift that is imperative. You have to get this before we go any further, or to really, really, really catch this and have this cognitive shift. This is the paradigm shift, and we're moving from the dominant school of medicine, i.e. allopathic medicine, hospital medicine, okay? And this is medicine that is pretty young. That medicine is pretty young. It's very young, actually, okay? And brief history, this came how did we get distracted and leave nature in the first place? You may wonder. How did that happen? That too. That too. Before that, how do we get the whole system? How do we get this whole dominant school of medicine? When I say dominant school of medicine, I mean hospital medicine, allopathic medicine, chemical medicine. Where did it come from? In the turn of the 20th century, 1910, there was something that happened, a report that came out, and this changed the face of medicine forever, and it's called the Flexner Report. Something known as the Flexner Report. This is 1910. Prior to that, everybody used natural medicine. It was the only thing everybody knew that. Everybody, imagine. So it just kind of zoom back in that timeline. It's like the 1700s, 1800s. People were growing their own food. They were, there was barefoot doctors. There were natural doctors. They were using herbal medicines. They were using all these things. There started to come up around that time, or late 1800s or so. Chemical medicine started to come onto the scene. Okay. Chemical medicine started to come onto the scene. There's a history there, but it started coming on the scene. And those chemical doctors were not liked. They were not popular. It was not the popular school of medicine. They were despised. Okay? They were using very harsh treatments that were killing people, and they were not popular. Okay? So there was a little bit of a PR problem there. There were these new industries coming up, Bayer and some of the early pharma companies. And so Flexner and the Carnegie Institute, backed by Rockefeller money, they made this study that came out. And also at that time, there were, in this country, there were hundreds of homeopathic hospitals and medical schools and educational institutions. This was just how it was, right? And so after that time, in 1910, that report came out, and what it did was it squeezed everybody out. They put into that report and that PR campaign what would be the equivalent of billions of dollars today. Okay, so just imagine like big time PR coming out promoting chemical medicine and to switch that perspective, essentially like propaganda and you know, to sway the public opinion, okay? That went through, and since then and after that, they said if you don't use the chemical medicine, and they identified that as being scientific, and anything other than that was unscientific. And so if you didn't do scientific medicine, then you could no longer receive federal funding. You could, so slowly, all those schools, those hospitals, those educational institutions, they drifted away. There's a 100-year plan.
It's still true today for allopathic medicine.
Well, they had a 100-year plan at that time, and that plan is playing out, and you can see it. All the medical schools, all the research institutions today, if you look and see where they're funding from, just look into it. It all comes from the pharmaceutical industry. So that's who funds the research. That's who funds the medicine. And anything other than that is quickly pounced on, quickly ostracized, and discredited, sometimes violently, okay? I don't want to get like all into that, but that's the history there. Again, context setting. So this is very important to understand so we can know what happened, how do we drift away from nature, and then, hey, let's come on back to the roots, because this, again, big picture, it hasn't been going on that long, and it's up to us to start to take this different look at, we're going to look at tonifying things. We're going to look at how do we clean the blood? How do we build the lymph? How do we detoxify the body? How do we get rid of these toxicities? How do we boost the vital force? How do we, what are the real laws of cure? How do we move from a reductionistic mental setup into the vitalistic mental setup, okay? There's our bridge. We establish natural surroundings, so we've crossed the bridge now. We're establishing the natural surroundings. This is the solution. This is what we have to do for the longevity, for the anti-aging. We establish natural surroundings. So what does that mean? Natural living. It means eating real food. It means eating clean food. It means drinking clean water, breathing clean air, establishing natural surroundings, getting outside, getting grounded, establishing a spiritual and feeling connection, really dialing in and activating the natural lifestyles. Okay? Reactivating these things are totally natural. You can see the kids and stuff, or even us. You go outside, you spend some time outside. It has a therapeutic effect all on its own. You didn't have to take anything or do anything. So it simplifies this whole thing. We can get ultra complex and really technical, but you don't have to. And really this works better than getting uber technical about some of the really heady stuff, hormones and all this stuff. I've been to these presentations, these docs, and everybody sounds really smart, and they use all these big scientific words and talk about all these, this cutting edge stuff, but it's like, if you see it in practice, a lot of times it doesn't really work, and then what are the side effects and after effects, and what about everything else in the body? Everything's interconnected, right? It's not that simplistic just to give a this for that. So we're getting back to the barefoot medicine. So now we're actually getting into the medicines. This is medicine. This is barefoot medicine, getting grounded, You know, there's actually a pool of electrons, a field around the Earth. There's an electromagnetic field around the Earth, and you literally plug yourself in when you get barefooted on the Earth. There are things that happen, and the blood chemistry can actually be measured. There's a fellow that did this, Clint Ober, I think his name is, and he wrote a book. I think it was called Earthing or something like that. But I think in that book they have some of they did some blood draws on people and then had them go ground for like 10 or 15 minutes or something, not anything crazy. And then they did another blood draw, and they checked things like cortisol levels, which is stress hormone that's secreted, some different inflammatory markers, and things like this, and they drastically changed the therapeutic effect, or the beneficial effect. So this is the equivalent of taking a medicine. We just again have to reframe, what do you mean taking medicine? You go outside and get grounded. Surrounded by the water is best. There's some effect even in the shower or a bath or something. I mean, the best is a living body of water, okay? Toxicities in the body often have a certain charge, and when you get barefooted, it's like it completes the circuit, and you'll discharge a lot of those charges that stick onto some of the different cells and the red blood cells, and you can see all this stuff if you take a prick of blood and look at it. You'll see, again, they've done this. You take a stick of blood, put it under the scope, and the blood will be kind of clumpy and stuck together in what's known as rouleau formations. The coin roll formations are all stuck together, and they're supposed to have a little bit of a field around them, a natural negative charge that sort of gives everybody a little bit of room so the blood can flow. That's kind of what's going on. There's a fluid dynamic thing that's going on, so you can discharge that. So these are things that there's no medicine that can do that. There's no medicine that does that quite like that. There's no pill. There's not a supplement even, really. I mean, I can give you some supplements to clean the blood up and stuff like that, but again, returning to nature. Being physical, using the body. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it, okay? Being physical, something, yoga and Tai Chi, exercising, running, these are the natural things that the body is intended to do. You can release muscle memories, release biomemories from the body by that action of stretching and squeezing